It binds generations. It shapes cultures. It exists in our rituals, in our joy, in our sadness. It gives us a shared purpose. It's the thing that poets, philosophers, scientists, and mystics have been trying to understand throughout history. Today, we're talking about love. In a world driven by individualism, consumerism, and algorithms, what is true love today? In this episode of Doha Debates, we're joined by experts, global thinkers, each with their own take on this issue.
True love is sacrifice.
Human love, human relationships are really about reconnecting and finding that meeting of minds.
True love is first love of God, and then love of what is good and virtuous, and love of one's fellow man.
Their perspectives will be explored and questioned in a majlis-style debate, grounded in understanding and a search for truth. Now, watching over all of this will be a group of university students and recent graduates. They come from different universities in Qatar Foundation's Education City and beyond, and have been preparing for this debate.
There's no such thing as love. It's just something we made up.
Sometimes it's just loving this person when you don't want to show love.
It's the recognition that you could be yourself with another person.
Is it really love or it's now stupidity?
It is beyond understanding. It is tedious to try to understand it, and yet it is so fulfilling.
You need to feel it, you need to express it.
Now, after our guests finish their debate, the students will reflect and deliberate before returning with their own insights, ready to challenge, agree, or offer entirely new perspectives. I'm Imran Garda, and this is Doha Debates. A very, very warm welcome to all of you. It's good to have you here on Doha Debates. Now, you know there are a lot of shows out there talking about love that are essentially about relationships. This is not one of them, okay? We're going bigger, we're going broader, and we're cutting to the very, very heart of it. And that's why I want to start with you, Anna. What does true love mean to you?
From a biological perspective, true love is a bond that is underpinned by a set of neurochemistry, which motivates us and rewards us for starting what we call our survival critical relationships. So those that are going to help us survive and pass our genes down the generations. But true love is defined by a concept called biobehavioral synchrony, which is when all the mechanisms in your body match the person you're in love with. And you are so closely bonded through all those mechanisms, physiological, behavioral, neural, that you practically become one organism with one operating system.
If we're conditioned in such a fine-tuned way for all of this, why are we so terrible at it?
Because we all have individual experiences of love. So there are so many variables that come into making your experience of love. Some of them are biological, so they're things like your genetics.
Oh my God, not the genetics.
These guys really love genetics, you know?
Your upbringing, your physiology, your neural structure. And then there's the cultural dimension, so how you were brought up, your religion, your politics, the media you've watched. All these different things come together to make your experience. I'm afraid some people are genetically predisposed to be better at it than others. Some are more motivated to find relationships. Some people find higher satisfaction in relationships. Our upbringing affects how we do that, things like your attachment style. So I'm afraid there is individual variation in terms of how easy we find it and also how much joy we get from it.
Okay, so Anna's talking about something that's sort of coming from within, right? Sharif, is this something that's evolutionary conditioning, evolutionary impulse, or is it something from up above?
From an Islamic perspective, certainly we would see love as something that is implanted in human beings by God, that our capacity to love, whether to love God, to love each other, to love things, love can be directed towards different persons, different objects, different also values and beliefs. We would say it's fitri. It is part of our fitra, part of our inborn nature as created by God. We've been created with a capacity to love. And so I don't see necessarily a contradiction between that perspective and the perspective that Anna has described, because Anna, in a sense, what we just heard is describing the mechanisms of it on a biological plane, right? Whereas I'm talking about kind of the larger matrix and sort of the transcendental aspect. And those are always in sync with each other, in a sense. My mind is coordinated with my brain function, but is it reducible to just biochemistry? That's where you get debates.
It's like if God created man, he also created man with whatever biological mechanism is required to love.
For me as a medical student, I understand that love is deeply biological. I understand that with almost every interaction with a human being, you have different types of neurochemicals that are being released within your brain and causing you to feel certain types of way.
That fitra, that innate thing that's seated inside. When Anna said that genetic basis, people start off at different levels. Talk to me a bit more about that. What do you think of that?
So there's a hadith or a saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him, where he says, every child is born on the fitra. كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ. And this has been understood that every child is born with kind of an innate disposition, primarily to recognize the existence and the oneness of God and the fact that we are creatures of a creator. And among what is in the fitra is precisely this inborn love that we have for that which is good, that which benefits us. So there are things that we kind of love for their own sake and things that we love because of the benefits they bring us. The idea to form, primarily like romantic partnerships, that's an aspect of love, but love, I think, is much broader than that.
I agree with every single thing Dr. Sharif was saying. I want to have a cup of coffee with this guy. I think we'd get along. Although he's coming in from a religious perspective, I find him extremely tolerant of different kinds of love and how love can manifest differently in people's lives. And your experience of love could be different. I agree with everything he's saying.
Let me go back to the very genesis. What is true love to you?
What is true love to me personally is something that's instinctive, that comes from within, that's biological, but at the same time, technology as part of a factor in our environment has an impact on the way that we perceive love and we seek love.
What do you mean by that?
It shapes our perceptions of who we are, it shapes our perceptions of who we want to be, and our expectations. It's a medium in which we facilitate our interactions, human-to-human interactions, may even come in contact with someone that we might fall in love with or have a relationship. So in that sense, it's a love, it's something that comes from within, but it is also impacted by the environment.
Okay, and we can talk a bit more about technology and maybe sort of, commodification of love. That would be interesting. Anna, jump in.
I just want to pick up on something Sharif said. As an anthropologist, what interests me is the entire spectrum of love. So what I was talking about isn't just romantic love. It's any love that occurs between what we would call sentient beings. And so that could be a god, that could be a dog, and it can also be that wide range of spectrum that we have.
That's an interesting perspective.
Point of view. In fact, there's no hierarchy of love. I think particularly in the West, we have a bit of an obsession with romantic love, but there is actually no hierarchy with romantic love at the top, which is the best one to get. Actually, they all have the similar benefits.
I would disagree. I believe there is a clear hierarchy. And I believe
she's saying that we need all types of love. Especially, we shouldn't have a hierarchy.
Whether it be a spiritual love or a religious love, a love for your family, your friends, your community, whatever it might be. We are so lucky as humans to be able to love in many, many different ways.
Do you think there's a hierarchy in Islam, Sharif?
The highest love should be love for God, and then love for the Prophet, peace be upon him. And then after that, love for the good, the true, the virtuous, and so forth, and then love for each other. First, our kin, our parents, our children, our siblings, closest, and then the community of believers, and then mankind more generally, right? So it kind of radiates out, and then, like we said, there can be love, as Anne also said, towards also non-sentient beings. But in terms of the hierarchy, yes, it's very clear in the Quran. For example, a verse that brings this, it says, "In kana aba'ukum wa abna'ukum wa ikhwanukum wa azwajukum wa ashiratukum." And it goes on, maybe I won't quote the whole thing in Arabic because it's long, but it says, if your parents, your children, your brethren, your spouses, your kin, and wealth which you have acquired, and commerce which you fear may slacken, and dwellings in which you take delight. Okay, all of these things are things which we naturally love, and it's not actually, the verse is not actually criticizing our love of those things, it's natural. I mean, what's more natural than to love your parents, your children, your siblings, you know, your larger kin group or tribe, you know, for example, and then, you know, wealth, your commerce, dwellings in which you delight. But if all of these things are more beloved to you than God and his messenger and struggling in the way of God, then wait until God, you know, brings forth his command, and God does not guide those who are iniquitous. So it kind of, you know, it doesn't blame these loves, but it says that there should be a hierarchy and that the love of God and God's messenger should be first, and then these things come afterwards.
Regarding the hierarchy that Dr. Sharif brought and Hamad brought, yes, I completely honestly agree with them. Like, they are amazing, and this is something that we should actually aspire to work on. But it's just simply not realistic in today's world.
Ayca, you want to come in?
Well, I'm thinking really about something Anna said, love is sentient. But then Sharif mentioned that we could love things that are also non-sentient. And naturally, it makes me think about artificial intelligence. There's been so much debate about whether we are coming to a place, and maybe we are already there, where AI might have feelings in the shape of companions.
The greatest thing that we can achieve in AI is consciousness.
What?
That's the greatest thing we can achieve.
I think with an absence of God, there is an absence of true love.
And they are shaping their expectations. So can someone love AI?
Up against millions of years of evolution, can they replicate love?
No. I think there are 2 points to be made. First of all, I would say sometimes the word love itself is inadequate, the English word love. So we talk about, I don't know, yes, love of landscape, love of, yes, a piece of music. As a scientist, I wouldn't define that as love. There are certain parameters that we see in the brain and we see in behavior and in psychology, which define what love is from that point of view. And it's certain activations in the brain, it's the release of certain neurochemicals, it's the presence of attachment relationships, and it's a set of certain behaviors.
She is just biology. I think it's a very reductionist view, it's a very simplistic view, takes away the soul out of love by calling it something as like a stimuli response reaction.
To me, it's completely justified, because this is something that includes science. It includes scientific reactions, chemical reactions, biological reactions within our body, and neurological reactions as well.
The brain is very good at spotting whether it's interacting with something that is sentient or not, even if you don't know. Mm-hmm. I have major worries about AI companion robots that build relationships with you. They have a place. I'm not saying they do not have a place, but if we could say whether or not that is a loving relationship, at the moment, definitely not. And as somebody who has studied the brain, and as you say, you know, our brains in relation to love are incredibly ancient. The idea that you can engineer that you can engineer empathy, that you can engineer this concept of biobehavioral synchrony, which is the coming together of two people or two beings as one organism, I find very difficult to agree would happen.
No, that's true though, that's true. You don't get the same biological benefits, you know.
We put people in a scanner, we don't tell them whether they're talking to a robot or they're talking to a human. When they talk to a human, they don't know it. We see so much activity in the prefrontal cortex, where social cognition sits. They talk to AI, there is nothing. Your brain knows. Your brain can detect it, whether you know or not.
So the AI can be a sort of comfort cushion?
It's a comfort cushion, but it must not replace.
Are you as pessimistic about that, Ayca?
Intelligence is bigger than artificial intelligence, and love cannot be artificially created. It can, but what it will be at best is not a very intelligent love, meaning, let me try to rephrase it this way. So in artificial intelligence, it's all about computer coding, machine learning, our expectations. They can do math, trillions of data, large data sets. It can observe, it can see patterns, it can process. Computational intelligence is here. But when we talk about artificial emotional intelligence, our expectations are here, because the products at the moment that are in the market that are pushed as artificially intelligent are not more than simulations. Basically, they ask you questions, they validate your feelings, They say things that you want to hear, and there is a danger in having a companion that agrees with everything you say and that tells you what you want to hear.
I disagree with it.
What
Is she
is
supporting
actually
it or
AI?
not?
AI
Something
is
with
AI.
conscious, a being that can feel things.
Yo, that's crazy. So she wants AI to become conscious?
That is the aim of AI.
But if it was correctly calibrated, can it be an augmentation, a help, a friend? Maybe not the object of your love, but maybe something that can guide you based on empathetic principles. And it can help you in your relationships, in making better choices, in caring for the environment. Is that maybe a bridge?
It's a slippery slope. I mean, that's what I think. I don't know what you think, but it's a slippery slope. And currently people can use it. Like you had an argument with your wife, and you want to have a little talk before. You don't really know what to say, what shall I tell her? And this is what happened. And you can use that as a sounding block and get some maybe ways to articulate your feelings. Maybe it will give you some creative ideas on where to get a gift and so on and so forth. But as you were interacting with this, and imagine that this conversation is pretty interesting, and this chatbot that has a name, that has a personality, it's just speaking like a human. It can help people to fight loneliness. It can help people to people who have maybe social anxiety, learn things, get things. But at the same time, it can easily be a substitute. It's easier. It doesn't judge you.
Is that the criteria for love now? Don't judge me?
No. I mean, sometimes people need that.
No, absolutely, and I agree. But we have to remember it's a tool to help us. Right. It's been shown that people who suffer from social anxiety, or indeed people who are neurodivergent, who may be autistic, can actually use these as tools to learn how to be more confident in social interaction. And that's wonderful. But when we diminish, for example, something like empathy is so cognitively complex. We kind of diminish what it is. We say emotional intelligence. Oh, it sounds so easy. It's so complex. The idea that you could program empathy, I find very difficult. Empathy, for one thing, empathy comes from a basis of life experience. So I'm going to share with you, I understand your predicament, your emotional state, because I have experienced this. Well, AI robots, at the moment anyway, do not have memory, they do not experience things. And what worries me with AI is exactly people will actually replace human contact with AI only to their detriment.
Sharif, I want to ask you, can love ever be conditional? Or is it not love if it's conditional?
If we take the hierarchy that, love of God, for example, is at the highest level, then that should be unconditional because, what would it mean to put a condition on that? What would a condition look like that I will only, for example, love God under certain conditions? So I would say, yeah, it should be unconditional.
No, unconditional love to God exists.
No.
No, what do you mean?
No.
Sundas.
I mean, come on, we're humans. There is no such thing as unconditional.
It doesn't.
There is still some
I agree with you. I agree with you.
But
But
do you
to
truly
God,
love
God is
God
an
if they're
exception,
going to be
right? Like God is
conditions?
unconditional
A
because
mother
He
loves
created you.
unconditionally.
So you will love Him no
Yes.
matter what, and He will love you no matter
I have
what.
argument against that. Our love for God isn't entirely unconditional because I think if God didn't love us back, if we didn't know that God loves us back, it would kind of be like Stockholm Syndrome.
Sometimes I feel like it is conditional, and sometimes I feel like it should not be conditional, and I don't think it is conditional. When I help people, they can die tomorrow, and I would still, help them today.
And even in our normal human interactions with each other, we often talk particularly about love between, parents and children. That should also be, in general, we expect parental love for a child to be unconditional, right? No matter what the child does, one should love that child. Even if you disapprove, you could be upset with them, you could disapprove, but the idea is that you always, in the end, you love them because they're your child. And hopefully, children also would love their parents in that way too. And I think also, if you have true love between friends, that would also be unconditional in that sense. And then when you also bring this idea of sacrifice, I think that's actually a good measure of what it means to love somebody, right? It's maybe not a definition of love, but one of the entailments of love, that if you love a person, to the degree to which you love that person, you are willing to sacrifice for that person. You're willing to adjust yourself to, do what makes them happy.
Right. Taking that point of a parent and a child, I mean, Anna, with the wiring, is the sort of parent-child dynamic. I know you've written a lot about fatherhood as well,
Yes.
so I'm not going to just say mother and child, I'm going to say mother and father and child. Is there a hierarchy when we look at the science where that is for sure unconditional and the others, well, it depends on who you ask and how and why?
Yeah.
Tell me about the science of this.
I've studied thousands of relationships. Unfortunately, not all love is unconditional. But in the child-parent relationship, obviously what we have here is we have, from an evolutionary point of view, genes in the game. So as far as evolution is concerned, as a parent, your sole point of being on Earth is to raise your children, help them survive so that they themselves can reproduce. So that is where the idea of unconditional parental love comes from. And it certainly is. When I speak to someone, I always say to people, what is your most powerful love? And if we are speaking to people with children, they will invariably, though there is an exception, say, my children. What's interesting is it's very difficult to measure on a scanner screen, for example, how powerful someone's love is. Because intensity, for example, of brain activation doesn't necessarily represent how powerful some love is. And so this is where science kind of finds it difficult to completely pinpoint that particular hierarchy of power, because actually how I experience love and how you experience love are probably different. And I will not understand how you feel when you're in love. And science will probably never touch that, which in one sense I think is wonderful. That's the magical bit of love. And even as a scientist, I believe in the magical bit of love. I have taken my time speaking to religious devotees. I actually spoke to a nun who unusually had actually had children, been married, and actually became a nun later in life. So I had this amazing comparator with her of actually, which is the most powerful? Is it romantic love? Is it children's love? Is it the love of God? And she said it was the love of God. Now, for me, as a parent, I was a little bit like, you know, because you think your children are, you know, absolutely your most powerful love.
Love of God is what allows you to raise good children.
Right.
Like it's the source of all morals.
Because it's your entire moral code, right?
But it was really, really interesting. And I think it goes to show that how we experience love is very much based upon what our inputs are. And particularly, I think if you have a religious love, then that idea of sacrifice and that idea of that love of God being the actual ultimate is very, very powerful.
When you asked about unconditional love, I was talking about sort of what is the ideal or what should be the case, right? But of course, you know, although that is paradigmatically the case, right? It could be also, you know, in certain cases, you have terrible parents, terrible children, you know, where there is a lack of love or very conditional love. I mean, the world is an imperfect place.
I'm reminded of the Romanian orphanage study because, you know, Anna said there's certain limitations about our understanding of these sort of bonds, right? And the Romanian orphanage study, if I can briefly sort of paraphrase it, it was published in the Lancet. You had these kids sort of, you know, post Soviet Romania, post-communism Romania in the early 1990s were adopted into stable, loving British families, UK families. But they were kids who grew up in the 80s and early 90s in a system of severe neglect. And they were not hugged by the nurses in the orphanage. And no matter what was thrown at them, and Anna, you're aware of the study, so if I get any of it wrong, please jump in. No matter what was thrown at them in terms of love, affection, giving them a stable household, giving them a platform in life, they had severe issues in life, severe difficulties, behavioral issues, aggression, and so on and so forth. And I mean, Gabor Mate talks about it. He says, you know, they didn't have people hugging them as babies. That was it. And so we don't quite know what it is, and we can talk about the hormones and the neurochemicals and so on and so forth, right? And this is not their biological mother as well, but compared to other orphans, they did far worse off. So when I tell that to you, Ayca, and you think of your worries about AI coming in as well, does it terrify you even more that we just don't understand what we're playing with?
It has huge potential. But at the same time, the general sense is this is great. I don't agree with that. I think AI is a special kind of technology that has its biases, that is not always accurate. And on the example, on the study that you shared, love is an instrument for socializing. It's one of our most fundamental ways to socialize, and that's how we form a family. It's the most sort of like the fundamental core unit. If we delegate that, if we delegate divine love to a chatbot.
I'm sorry, what?
And there's examples of that. Now they're given advices, religious advices. I don't know what you think about that. If we delegate parental love, if we delegate friendship, romantic love, what we're actually giving out is that opportunity to have that hug.
Yes.
To have that human-to-human connection. And love is mutual. And when I say mutual, I am not really talking about the conditional part, but I'm talking really about when it activates empathy. Empathy is a very high-level feeling.
If it's artificial, it's not real. It's imaginary. So if you are having a relationship, quote unquote, with a machine, then you are only imagining, it's reproducing in your mind, the impression of having a relationship, but it's not a real relationship.
I think with the concept of algorithms and AI, it was interesting to be brought into love. Never heard or talked about it in class before.
And like I just said, it's not mutual. And I think it's so instinctive to all of us that to be in a relationship, I mean, the word relationship means, like relation, we do this, like it's a relationship between two sides. And a machine that's only kind of stimulating things in your brain is not really apt to be in a mutual relationship. It can't be in a relationship.
I think one of the issues we have and why I think some people fall for AI relationships is actually the concept of a parasocial relationship. And a parasocial relationship or a parasocial love is in fact one-sided. So parasocial relationships occur when you develop an attachment to or a love for like a character in a book or a film star or a celebrity or a pop singer, and generally you get nothing back. It is not a reciprocal relationship. You talked about touch. Touch is the basis of all human love. But we are able to have these relationships. And in one sense, that's amazing. But in the other sense, there is a downside because it means that we can believe we are in a relationship with the AI robot because it's a parasocial relationship. So that's where the danger lies, I think, is as humans, we are sucked into these relationships.
But why is it dangerous?
Because you get none of the benefits of love. I think love is everything. It's your humanity. It sits at the core of everything. So if we look at someone's brain when they are interacting with an AI robot, not only do you get no activity, but you get none of the positive neurochemistry, which, for example, underpins your immune system. You get nothing. And that is why it's dangerous, because ultimately, initially you might think, this is great, I feel happy, I've got someone to talk to, it's combating my loneliness. Over time, that will decay, because actually you're not getting any of the benefits.
There is a huge opportunity cost or a learning loss when we substitute AI. We're not, when there's a human-to-human interaction, we are acquiring important skills and behaviors, attitudes. And one of those attitudes is to be able to work out differences when we disagree. And that goes back to the difficult attitude of empathy. And you look at the world around us right now, and you can see where we are on the empathy bar.
So is it because there's a lot of love, but it's only for our people, our tribe, our creed, our whatever, and not the other side?
Exactly. And that happens to be one of the reasons, according to anthropologists, you might know this, is why the Homo sapiens have survived, because Homo sapiens were able to work and communicate with the tribes that were behaving a little different.
But everything is fair in love and war, no?
Okay, well, stray dogs.
Now, empathy is, when you have a husband and wife, they have disagreements. When you have your friends, real human friends, they disagree with you. These are all opportunities to work on and activate those muscles. How much can you tolerate? How much can you accept someone who is different than you? If you replace that, if you have a substitute that is not challenging you, that exactly is designed to keep you on line as much as possible, then you give away that skill when you try to have the conversation with the human touch. That helps. So this is actually key to our survival. This is key to world peace, if you want to put it that way in a simple term.
So Sharif, that point being made that touch is fundamental, but touch between two humans is lower on your hierarchy. How does that translate to the ultimate hierarchy in your mind?
I think one thing about modern culture particularly is that it centers the self. And this is like modern culture, meaning like modern Western culture particularly. The self becomes this kind of the modern self is a very peculiar thing, you know, because it's not just, I mean, we all have a sense of who am I and what's my name and what are my relationships, but the modern self is kind of like the center of the universe, right? The idea is that I am born to be radically free, to be radically autonomous, to kind of, you know, develop myself in every possible way, and everything that exists, you know, we say, oh, the world revolves around you, and that's really how people in the modern world are taught to think. Right? Well, what do you think, and what's your opinion, and what you know, how does this serve your ends?
I wonder if it's absolutely true, because you still have people going and volunteering in war zones, for example,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, sure.
Sudan, Gaza, going, you know, there's no benefit to them. They're risking their lives. They're feeding people. They're helping people.
I mean, nothing's 100%. I'm just saying it's a tendency of modern culture, right? When you compare it to other cultures, either contemporaneous or past cultures, right? There is a hyper focus on the individual human ego.
Honestly, to me, humans are inherently selfish. Like, even the examples that he's mentioning, they are going because satisfying themselves and doing good deeds at the very end of the day. So we're inherently selfish.
Humans are good.
Which is very much a hallmark of our age. That's all I'm saying. It doesn't mean that everyone is a complete paradigm of that. Nobody is. I mean, I'm just saying that's kind of paradigmatically what's put out there, and we're all affected by it to one degree or another.
And I want to add a word to that as we go to Anna. This word, a lot of people believe we're in a more selfish and narcissistic culture. Tell me if you believe that's true or not.
I don't think we're necessarily in a more narcissistic culture. The word narcissism is thrown around a little bit too liberally, I think. Narcissistic personality disorder is a very distinct diagnostic psychiatric condition. But we are certainly in an era of individualism, and we're certainly in an era of self-love. I quite often get asked by people when I've done a whole talk on love, you didn't talk about self-love. Which I find kind of fascinating, because as you say, it's very much directed at yourself. And the reason why I don't talk about self-love is I don't define that as love. It's self-regard, it's maybe self-nurturing, it's definitely not self-love, because love is very much something you project outwards towards something. So the idea of self-love, I mean, I'm all up for self-care, this is fine, you know, nurture yourself, but love is about going outwards. And again, with the concept of self-love, you cannot technically love yourself in terms of, again, the neurochemical benefits, the health benefits, et cetera, et cetera. So
self-love is not love, that's horrible.
Yeah.
I agree.
Personally, I don't think it is love, but the idea that we've even got the concept of self-love, I think is interesting. That we put, and the number of people who come up to me and go, oh, you do need to love yourself first. In one sense, yes, you need to like yourself. It's a good psychological state to be in. But the idea that you put that before every other sort of love.
Mildly tolerate yourself.
Yeah, mildly, you know, I'm British, that's what we do. But, you know, the idea that you would put that before all other sorts of love is interesting, because actually you don't get as much benefit from loving yourself as you do from loving other people. We know, for example, people who volunteer, people who do things for other people, are amongst the happiest, the most satisfied, the healthiest.
But they're not getting anything material, but something else is going on.
But something else is going on, and they are getting a life satisfaction.
If we didn't love ourselves, we just let people walk all over us. So I'm just very confused why she doesn't think that that's a thing that exists.
And she said self-care is important.
Self-care is important, but love should be
is a different thing to self-love, though.
I don't think you should have self-love per se. I think you should have self-respect and boundaries. However, it's not the same thing at all.
If you have those, you love yourself, regardless of.
I think it's sad if you don't love yourself.
Are we seeing less of that because we don't understand love?
Yes, I think we are.
Is our modern society messing us up in that sense?
I think we don't understand what love is. I don't think we understand how important it is that you project love outwards. I think we've completely lost track of where it sits in our humanity. Social media does have, I'm afraid, a role to play in that, because social media, again, is generally all about, let me tell you about myself, let's talk about me. And actually trying to efficiently manage your relationship. So I'm just going to talk about to these 100 people at once rather than talking one-on-one to somebody. And again, there are no neurochemical benefits of being on social media. In fact, it can be quite detrimental to your relationships. So yes, I think we have completely, in this world, lost touch of what love is and where it needs to sit in our lives. And I think that's hugely sad.
Ayca?
It's interesting because, you know, Sharif and Anna both mentioned about the modern society. We are at this phase where we're very much focused on the individual, and that's traditionally the Western culture. Islamic traditions, Eastern tradition, Confucian traditions, they place a lot more emphasis on the good of the collective. There's a hierarchy, there's respect for the elders, and there's the community that comes before you. And AI is coming from a place not exclusively a Western invention, but it is driven, it's based on maximizing that individuality. What is behind it is efficiency. AI is a technology that is meant to introduce efficiency in the workplace, that can automate certain tasks, that was initially meant to automate certain tasks that what others wouldn't do. But now we have come to a place, because there's so much pushback against having conversations around ethics, even thinking about regulation, because it's going to stifle innovation, and we don't want that. Now, it's sort of out of the box, and now we're talking about AI in love, AI in arts. Do we need to be? I mean, my question would be: I would be really interested to know: do you think we could be or should be efficient in love? Is there such a thing as efficiency in love?
The whole point of love and the whole point of your relationships, in some sense, is that they are not supposed to be efficient. They are so valuable to you. We call it social capital. We call it social capital because, like financial capital, you're supposed to invest and help it to grow. And that means you invest time and you invest brain power in it. So the idea that you can efficiently manage your relationships or efficiently manage love is the polar opposite to how it should be.
I think we should be efficient, and the efficient way is the Islamic way, I think. Rather than getting your heart broken 1 million times and destroying your self-worth and your self-love, for example, get a beautiful arranged marriage.
But what does efficiency mean?
I know a lot of friends who got divorced from arranged marriage and got their heart broken because of an arranged marriage.
I know many more friends who broke up with their boyfriend's girlfriend.
We're human, right?
I think efficiency for me means you just get married on the first date. That's my form of efficiency. I think that the way I view love is inherently Islamic because I am a Muslim, and I think that many facets of my life, because I'm a Muslim, I viewed from that perspective, from work to love to relationships, etc. And I think that is the correct way to look at it.
Love is not transactional, and you are supposed to, because it's so valuable to you, invest in it. And that means investing time in doing it one-on-one, in person, not in an efficient way, using AI or any other form of digital medium.
So isn't this an economic problem?
I think it's a problem. It is, to a certain extent. Our world has got quicker and quicker and quicker, and we've kind of got this idea that, everything should be done as efficiently as it possibly should be, and don't waste time, because time is money. And yes, I think that's come into the realms of our relationships in the way AI has come into the realms of our relationships. Do you want AI to enter your intimate relationships? Do you want your children raised by an AI nanny? Do you want your mother or your father to be cared for by a humanoid robot? And these are questions we need to ask, because they are absolutely fundamental to that person's life experience, to their health. With a child, to the development of their brain. I mean, we are born with our brains not fully formed, and your brain is accelerating in terms of developing. So if you do not get the right input at that age, the right love, the right attachment, the right behaviours, it's very hard to come back from that. In Britain, we have a problem with not enough, nurseries, not enough carers in nurseries. I know the ideal way to do that: get a robot. Never gets sick, never takes holiday. But do you want your child to, because that's going to fundamentally impact the development of their brain, lifelong.
It's actually a real issue in Japan right now. And they are looking into these humanoids, robots, to take care for the elderly, because there's not enough supply of nurses. But then you also think about the fact that you're delegating that responsibility to someone, and then you sort of like check it off. And does that mean the child is no longer there? So it's again these traditions, the need to have these social bonds, the community. Those are the things that keeps us together. It's just about love, but it's also about continuity. And that's where I think AI is coming in as a threat.
Care is fundamentally based on love, right? Yeah. Like it should be your child who's taking care of you or someone else.
I mean, obviously, right? But if that person's not available, it's a good point.
I think sometimes it is useful.
We agree. Definitely, you don't have the means.
When there's a required standard of care that you're unable to provide.
Yeah, definitely.
As
definitely, right?
Child, whatever.
Yeah, it's like the last resort, right? Like if truly it's out of your
So when I heard like the students expressing love for community, love for humanity, and love for, the vulnerable, that gives me a lot of hope. that we would be oriented towards a much more loving society.
I think, again, with AI, we're misunderstanding the complexity of human behavior. So we misunderstand how complex empathy is from a cognitive point. We misunderstand how complex care is. Because care, the basis of care is empathy. But also, you know, I think robots would be great at, you know, I don't know, loading the dishwasher, doing the washing, counting the pills out. Brilliant.
Right.
To free the human up, to sit there and hold the hand and make the cup of tea and say, I've noticed you're having a bad day. Let's talk about that. Care is not a practical thing. Care it comes from a place of empathy and love.
So we have Mother's Day, we have Valentine's Day, we have Father's Day, we have Earth Day when we're, you know, we care about the earth on that particular day. So all these sort of tick boxes of us showing love, care, empathy. There's always some money to be made as well. How do you feel about that?
If you look at the origins of all of these are basically commercial gimmicks. How can we sell a bunch of cards and flowers in the middle of May? You know, let's make Mother's Day, let's make Father. It's good to honor our mother and our father. I mean, we're supposed to do that. It's a command even, it's like, you know, the second commandment in the Bible. I think that when it comes to these, you know, holidays, we should also remember that, okay, I should not only be celebrating my mother once a year, it's really every day that I need to be maintaining that relationship. It's every day or every week that I need to be calling my mother if I don't live near her, my father, you know, and check up on them and care for them, right? And make sure that they're cared for, because there wasn't a Child's Day where you know, one day of the year they checked in and kind of, you know, took care of me. They were caring for me constantly, right? We should always be aware that there are profit motives behind a lot of these things. And also people, you know, tend to overspend. You're made to feel morally obligated that, okay, it's not a proper Mother's Day unless I've spent $600. Most people would agree that a gift that someone made, you know, whether it's a child or an adult, something that you actually made, you know, a sweater that like you knit for somebody, or a painting that you drew, or something like that, or something that you is much, much more valuable, not in monetary terms. It might be a lot cheaper to produce, but the idea is there's a personal investment in that, right? That you will cherish that much more than, you know, someone just ordered something online on Amazon and had it shipped to your door in a brown box, you know, with a little typed out note, dear so-and-so, happy birthday, I love you, whatever.
If we now show these like simple gifts that are handmade, or these simple gestures of love that are handmade, or put personal value into them, you can see that there's a huge difference of appreciation from the other person towards it.
We've been speaking for a long time about love, you know. Is it sort of culturally contingent? And I know, Sharif, when we ask about the word love in Arabic, there's multiple manifestations of it as well.
He better start talking about love in Arabic, man. There's so much to talk about, honestly.
Sort of, there's a root word, and you can sort of create a mind map out of it with multiple ways. Is our language limiting?
Yeah.
With English, we're stuck with this one word, and it's a little bit subjective, isn't it?
It's incredibly limiting, and I think that's where we struggle with actually, in the English language, understanding what love is a little bit. Because yes, we have one word and we will use it for saying, I love pizza, I love God, you know, I love my children.
And Sharif, as a professor of the Arabic language itself, when you say love, how do you translate that into Arabic?
The most common word would be hub or mahabba, so that root hababa, and that actually occurs in the Quran 95 times, you know, in the Quran, mostly in the verbal form, to love, ahabba yuhibbu. But you also have the root wed, wadda yawaddu, in the words wood and mawadda, which is kind of like affection or loving kindness. And it's interesting that in the Quran, so God says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ جَعَلَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. So among his signs, God's signs, is that he created from amongst you mates, you know, spouses, for you to find rest in. And he created between you mawadda and rahma, loving kindness and mercy. So it's interesting that the relationship is not actually described as ishq, which would be the word used for kind of like passionate love, like this romantic love. And that's used in poetry, you know, but that's not what the term used in the Quran. It says he placed between you mawadda and rahma, so loving kindness or affection and mercy. Because that kind of passionate love, the kind of Hollywood love, that is present at the beginning of the relationship. It doesn't last. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think part of the crisis of modern marriage is that people are looking for these quote unquote love marriages. Of course, love should be there, but what kind of love? If it's just based on that very hot kind of Hollywood passionate ishq, if that's the only thing you have going into it, it's not going to last. Because once that feeling subsides, there's nothing really there to catch, you know, the hole that's left, and it just falls apart. So what you need is more of a long-term, these other terms that are used, like hub, right, which can be used. Now, hub is very general. It can be used for God, for other people, for one's friends, for one's companions, for one's spouse, children, all of these. And then there are other, like you were mentioning, this idea of love as being a negative. Some of the words in Arabic for love, so ishq, originally has kind of a negative connotation.
We need to speak to the manager of the English language.
We do. Well, I'm talking about romantic love, because romantic love actually is a really unhelpful concept. Okay. So romantic love is a modern notion. It's a social construct. It kind of arose in sort of the romantic period in sort of the 1700s, in England among the romantic poets. And actually, it's not really been a very helpful concept, because romantic love is all about, as you know, passion and finding the one and, having to overcome hurdles. But unfortunately, it's the one that the West has plumped for. The idea of romantic love in non-Western concepts doesn't even exist in many cultures.
That's not true.
That's not true.
What the hell?
Yo, what is it? What?
Ma'am.
Have you ever picked up Ghalib? Like, have you ever picked up any Urdu poet? Read that and tell me that that's not passionate love. You know what I mean?
And I'm curious to hear from the young people what they think about this. This is but 1/3 of this program. There'll be much more to come. Thanks so much. I'm reminded of that Meister Eckhart quote where he says, "Theologians of the world may differ, but the mystics all speak the same language." And in a way, we've had a fascinating discussion. People from, you're all mystics here in this discussion. Thanks so much. This is one part of it. Okay. I'm going to speak to the students in a bit and we'll come back. So throughout this debate, our panel of students and recent graduates has been carefully listening to all your ideas and your arguments. Next up, I'm going to go next door. I'm going to join them as they'll reflect and deliberate on what they've just heard. And then after their discussion, they'll return to share their own perspectives along with potential questions, potential challenges. Hi, guys. It's time to talk about love with all of you. Do you think we missed anything in that discussion?
Yeah, absolutely did.
Oh, we did.
Yes.
Tell me what we missed.
So I think we missed two key facets about love in the debate. Like, firstly, the very nature of how and what love is ultimately it's a way for a being to understand another being, right? Secondly, we talked a lot about how biological processes are about how, like understanding one another, how these chemical neurons fire, about divine love and how it relates to God, right? But what we missed here was that just because it's not with a certain person doesn't mean love cannot be self-transformational.
Okay, so give me a transformational example.
So that means that, let's say you're talking to an AI chatbot, right? You're saying that right now that love isn't real, but I don't think that's true. The essence of love is still there. You're not getting the reciprocity, perhaps, but the essence of it is still there. It is still, you need to interact with another person to make it real, so to speak. But is that really the case? Like, can you not love for the sake of love? Can you not, you take love as a self-transformational experience, I don't necessarily agree with it being fake.
Anybody disagree with that?
Yeah, I completely disagree.
Okay, a lot of people. Let's start with Sundus.
I think that automation can help people in terms of simulation. I think it can help you maybe build up some skills. I think it can be useful for people with neurodivergent tendencies as we use in therapies. I don't think beyond that you can actually receive some form of actual love in return, but maybe that person is happy with that.
I get that. I don't disagree with your point. I just don't think it should be normalized. It's gonna make a lot of people just kind of forget what real love is. It feels like you're missing something and you're trying to find it in the wrong means. Like, it should not be relied on. It should not be normalized. It's a bit concerning in terms of lifestyle. So I feel like we need to tread that very carefully.
If I can push back on that, I just want to say, who are we to say how people should love and who to love? I understand that maybe there's healthier ways, and maybe we can tell about it, discuss it, and have a conversation with them, right? But if they fall in love with a tree, who are you to tell them you are wrong for loving a tree?
I'm not telling you, I'm telling my son,
if you're
right? I'm not gonna tell you.
if you're saying let's not normalize it, then you're implying that everybody should follow this logic that you have.
I mean, look, I don't think it's a healthy lifestyle. That's just what I think, you know?
Okay, so let's go. Hamid, come in.
Yeah, so I think your perspective about let's live and let live, let everyone love how they want to love is actually a ridiculous point of view, really. This is not going to produce a community with families that are family units, with children, etc., with strong bonds between the community. I think that we have to understand that not all love is created equal. There is a hierarchy of love as well. I think that if you were to go and say, this person can love his car and love his this in the same way that someone loves their family, I think, no. This is someone creating a parasocial relationship, a one-sided relationship.
What she's saying is that who are we to get involved?
I think we are.
But there's a risk
as
to
people
that.
who want the betterment of society at large, as well as the best for others. I think it is our duty to get involved.
Okay, so Carl and then Hussein.
I think what's coming more of a concern is how you actually form that connection and that fulfillment. So I can give you examples. We look at people, let's say, in Japan who are falling in love with these humanoids or with these chatbots, for example. They still feel isolated. They don't have that fulfillment that love should come about with, the connection at least that Hamid was talking about. In some African countries where AI hasn't necessarily been adopted that much, where you're not having to depend on a humanoid, you get to see that the essence of love and how people connect still exists and is still more meaningful.
Sorry to be this guy, but I have to bring capitalism into this. We saw two concepts of hierarchy, but the concepts of hierarchy that they were bringing was very inconsiderate of the hierarchy that we have in our generation. Hamid comes and tells you that the idea of loving a tree or loving a car or being obsessed with all of these materialistic options is not really realistic, but unfortunately, because of the world that we're living in, our love to materialistic objects is a lot higher than family. And this is why we have an unproductive society. This is why our families are not connected. This is why the values of love have completely changed and the identity of love have completely changed. And I feel like the most important thing about love is just receiving the satisfaction at the end of the day.
And I would like to push back on your point that you said the most important thing about love is that we just feel that satisfaction. I think that the more important thing about love is sacrifice. The more important thing about love is creating a bond with another human being. The more important thing about love is, for example, creating a household within a married couple. The more important thing about love is the feeling of duty towards one another within a society.
I have a question. Don't you think that me making a sacrifice of not being close to my parents or my family for the sake of being a CEO of a company is not considered a sacrifice that I can love and be obsessed with and work for to actually reach it? This is what is happening in today's world.
I think anybody who is in love with something that cannot love them back by nature is inherently unwell.
Hamid and I disagreed in different layers, right? Like Hamid was bringing that there is the hierarchy of Dr. Sharif and he was agreeing with it and he was supporting it. And I believe that this is a decent hierarchy that you can follow as a human being for you to be able to develop good social interactions and relationships with whoever is around you. Completely fine, completely justified. But the problem is within our society nowadays, when I have a struggling economy and I'm a person, I honestly do not think I will go with the idea of after God, I will go with communities and morals. No, I will, after God straight away, I'll be going into money, prosperity, success, and then I might go into morals, values, family, and stability later on, because we are in a very materialistic world that we need to keep up with the competition. And if we don't, it's gonna be very, very hard for us to even reach the idea of family.
I guess if he wants, if he wants that type of life, I guess, go ahead. I don't have any complaints.
Before, it was a lot easier for you to go from God to morals to family because there wasn't this huge stress on the financial aspect.
Now I want to bring some of the others who haven't had an opportunity yet in as this conversation evolves. Let's start with John Carlos and then we'll flow.
So I actually want to fill in to Lina's point and what was missing in Mudassar's model, basically. I think that by framing love in a very accessible way, whether it be through AI chatbots or through dating apps, I think it completely misses one of the most vital parts of love, and that is chance, spontaneity. By making love much more accessible, we actually tend to devalue love, right? And I fear that the modern world that we live today completely perverses that notion of love, that deeper truth of love, that it is rare, but it is also one of commitment.
There's something so special about meeting that person through chance.
Okay, so can I take what you just said and upscale it? And say that, are we creating a society in such a way that even that love of an idea or stumbling upon something, a child stumbling upon a love to become an astronaut or something, right? Somebody finding a sort of moral and spiritual awakening? Have we lost to that point of spontaneity? Have we lost that love? Never mind just falling in love with somebody in high school.
I think value inherently is in the actual scarcity of something, right? So I think that anything that is valuable is scarce. I think that for you to be able to become, for example, why is it great to be a doctor? Because it's very difficult to become a doctor. It's scarce.
Absolutely not.
So usually with these things, for example, like love, etc., the value in them is the difficulty that it takes to get them. You must build a connection.
You
must speak
love
to someone.
A hardship, though.
No, but it's not a hardship.
Hardship.
It's a journey that you must go on in order to get to love. You're not going to love someone automatically.
You don't have to
not
be
on first
on
sight.
like survival mode.
You must build a relationship with them, which takes time and effort. And this is what actually makes love valuable.
Every single person here is different. Now I want to go off Felicia's and Hussein's point. So I love the example Hussein gave of a CEO, giving up family time, because that's me. That's what I'm trying to be in the future. I want to change the world in a positive way. So I'm spending less time with my family. I'm taking less days off, and I'm working harder. Why? This is because it's something I love.
The reality is that when you're going to die, when you're going to be on your deathbed, you're not going to be calling for where are my board of directors in my company? Where is my money that I made? No, you're going to be saying, where's my family?
But of course,
where are my children? Where's my wife?
Imagine you change the world. Imagine you change the world to such an extent where you're on your deathbed and people around you are the people who you impacted. That's so beautiful, and that's something we should all strive for, By the way, this is me, and you're laughing at this. I get it. But you want to be a doctor, and I could laugh at that too. Everyone is different. We have to respect that. And like I said, I bring back the Quran. Your religion is yours and mine is mine. And we should learn from that and not make fun of others.
Okay, Hamad, I understand you were born here and this is a different culture. And I understand that you value family. I just do not understand why you put love, like family has to be the product of love. Not everybody wants to have a family. So I think you have to really expand your opinion and consider other things. I understand it's important to you, but we will never proceed in this conversation if you don't consider the other types of love.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is completely valid. I believe that love, for other than the sake of Allah, is an incomplete love. What do we mean by the sake of Allah? I mean by pushing forward goals of the religion.
I want to step back for a second here. Something that was discussed in the first part of this Doha debate was there seemed to be consensus among the panelists that we're living in a zeitgeist, a society of self-love, which isn't altogether positive. I see so many people connecting with refugees around the world, saying what's happening in Sudan is wrong, what's happening in Palestine. So in a way, sometimes I feel the evidence doesn't square with this idea of a selfish society filled with self-love.
When we talk about like refugees and people in those communities that are basically just out there to survive, personally, I've seen some of the most beautiful love there. I know that they say that it's not a biological thing as well, but I don't agree with that. I think you need self-love to give love to people. I cannot work in a refugee camp all day and night and not feel some love for myself. I need to be very empathetic for myself and other people in order to give them back some love.
Can I ask you a question?
So I think they're both very important.
I always hear the talk of self-love, and I understand it, but this is not self-deprecating, right? I'm very fine with my existence. I don't feel self-love. I don't love myself. I'm okay with myself. I care for myself. I know my rights. I act on them. I don't let someone disrespect me. But I don't know if I love myself, but I care very deeply of my existence.
And
but I'm me.
That is love. I think caring for myself, making sure that when I have a serious health condition to take care of myself and to be aware that what people are doing to me is wrong if they try to insult me or if they do anything
so you
that
see
is
this
not
as
good to me.
right?
I think this is love because when I say I love the other person, I'm gonna stand for them. So the way I'm gonna stand for them is the way how I'm gonna stand for myself.
It's all selfish, honestly. The idea of just doing voluntarily work is still selfish because I'm satisfying my own needs of what I want to do. I want to be a good person for the community.
It's a better selfishness than exploiting somebody.
Exactly.
It's always humans are naturally selfish at the end of the day.
I completely disagree.
And I don't want it to be a negative thing. So it's completely fine to have that.
I completely
but
disagree.
The hierarchy that we have, I agree with you in terms of coming from a Muslim community, God should be first, community comes second. Unfortunately, we have people that do not put the relationship with God and religion at first, or even family at first.
Do you think the word selfish is the best word to use? Doesn't it?
Absolutely
Wait. Let me finish the point.
Yeah.
Let me finish the question. I believe selfish has a negative connotation. Don't you think self-interest would better serve that? Because, wait. Because if you had to say people are self-interested, it means they're driven by something that will work towards their benefit. Selfish kind of, like, it makes you look like a sly fox, don't you think?
No.
Even self-interested is a step too far, I would say.
Being selfish just means that I'm working for myself. It's completely fine to work for
I
myself.
agreed with you,
Like,
but then there's people out there who are putting their lives at risk. You know, when I see a journalist in Gaza or in Sudan, anywhere, I'm like, are these people selfish? Are they doing it for the views?
I'm satisfying myself by
but here's
being
the thing,
good to
though.
the entire
They
world
can
and
die
spreading a
tomorrow.
message.
They can die tomorrow. They're leaving their AC. They're leaving their kids. They're leaving their family. They're leaving their husbands and wives.
Because this is what satisfies me.
But no, I don't think so. No.
Yes.
If you put your life at risk, I don't think it's selfish. I think you love yourself.
It satisfies me to be a good cause for others.
I think we need to decenter the conversation about how apparently sacrificing yourself is the only way that you can feel love, and that's the only way of true love, right? Like it's so I think love actually is not selfish and it's not selfless. It's self-transcendental. So what do I mean by that? It means that you go beyond and decenter yourself. That doesn't mean yourself stops existing. You just understand that, hey, I am not the only person, I am not the only thing in the world. I can relate. Hussein said, love, like, you know, all human beings are selfish. And I'm like, ooh, that's a bold take, you know what I mean? Like, I think that there seems to be this sort of misconception that the only way you can love is to sacrifice. And that comes from like the whole aspect of, like, you know, love being duty and all of that. But no, love is beyond duty.
I think unconditional love exists.
And we need to be very
honest. It is 100% true. Let me hold on. You know, you talked about capitalism. You guys talked about capitalism. There's Valentine's Day, there's Mother's Day, there's Earth Day. I believe that if there's genuine love, Mother's Day is every day for you.
Agreed.
You know? If you're in a genuine relationship, you're gonna have your anniversary every single day.
But that's something good to say when you forget as well.
I mean, yeah, it happens. But then my point is that genuine love exists. You know, all these movies that have romanticized all these things, they got it from somewhere. And I think they got it from real people that exist in the world. And they're like, oh, let me take this, and then they put it in movies. And now we're like, that only happens in movies.
I just want to say that I don't know why we keep looking at emotions on like two extreme spectrums. Something can exist in a balance. Good and bad doesn't always have to exist separately. Things can be good and bad in different degrees at the same time. But when we're talking about conditionality, you cannot take that away from any action in this world. Going back to Hussein's point then from this, it attaches to that. You have a want, you have a need. It is to take care for someone. Okay, it is to sacrifice for someone, but there is something that is motivating you to do something, and you doing that removes that motivation.
I really don't think it's logically possible to say that unconditional love exists. I think we just have to be honest with ourselves that even a mother's love is not entirely unconditional. I think deep down I know that my love is unconditional, whether it's for my family or my friends or people I work with or people I help. Because when I make it a conditional thing, it just, in my opinion, it loses meaning.
I believe that unconditional love does exist. It exists in specific cases. It doesn't need to exist in all sorts of relationships because, of course, all sorts of relationships are not valuable enough in their level of love to have unconditional love.
I feel like there should be conditions towards love. And the reason why is because unconditional love can actually be harmful and toxic. You need to have limits to whatever you're going to take.
So let me push back.
Wait. And conditions, I think conditional love does not mean like selfish love where I don't care about the person. It means that I'm doing my best. I will do whatever I can for you, but I also need to like care for myself because I cannot love you if I don't care about myself.
Or you need to respect me if I'm doing
Yeah,
things.
we need like a balance between the two of us.
I want to bring in the aspect of culture, literature, poetry. I don't know if you guys saw that meme, the Rumi meme, which was like my poetry is about Allah, not your ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
So like I found sometimes some of the most interesting poetry has that ability to be ambiguous. So even like, you know, Palestinians, Mahmoud Darwish, it's about the land, but you can also use it regarding a person. You can do the same with Shakespeare. You can do, that's the thing. It can be your love. It can be your love of your homeland. It could be your love of your people, love of humanity, and so on. Sarah, interestingly, there was that Somali-British poet, Warsan Shire. She wrote this beautiful poem. And at the time, at the height of the refugee crisis, when so many boats were crossing the Mediterranean and were sinking, she had that one line, nobody puts their children in the boat unless the water is safer than the land. People developed a lot of empathy as a result of that, and they got to see sort of the parental-child relationship. Yeah, of course, they don't want their kids to die. They want a better future for their kids. So to the point of, what are the things that unite us in terms of poetry, in terms of culture, that break through these barriers and allow us to see each other as human beings who are flawed and fumbling, but also trying to love?
I think humanity, grief, and like the suffering of humanity, that's what I think like tied me to my humanitarian side, and the refugee work that I've been working on, like that's what made the connection. Because why am I sitting here completely safe, but I know millions are dying and do? And I think the helplessness of being in this world, of being in this point in my life, that's what makes me and so many other people like me help. And I don't think it's even imaginable how much love people like that who are in those like situations and circumstances, how much love they have for their homeland, for their people, for themselves, and how much they have to sacrifice.
I think what really truly connects us is yes, like there's poetry and like all of that music and all of that, like it's, but the fundamental underpinning of that is the fact that love has not changed over the past millennia. We use different mediums and modes to express it. We use poetry, we talk about like romantic love, we talk about relational, divine love, everything. But love in and of itself has not changed. Like your algorithms can perhaps shape your preferences, but they can't shape presence. They can't shape the not materiality, but the existence of love, because that is fundamental to who we are as human beings. Like that doesn't change. And I think that is why when we read that poem, where it's about like, you know, the sea is safer than the land, that is why we react so strongly to it, because we understand, because we love the same way as all other humans love.
I think that there is a lot of love for people who are vulnerable, but I also think that there's a lot of hate, rather, against vulnerable people. So you look at the rise of the far right in Europe, for example. But that hate also stems from love, particularly the love of country. Love is very exclusive, right? You can only love one thing, and when we reject others, there's a certain kind of violence to that.
I completely
agree. So how do we
temper
temper that love for country in order to express our love for other people?
I want to push back a little bit on the fact that you can't love everyone. I think that's absolutely a fundamental mischaracterization. You absolutely can. Like, okay, yes, you're not...
If someone comes and attacks your family and you love your family, what are you gonna do? Just like shoot them with hearts because you love everyone?
I don't necessarily have a specific example for what I see love as, but I see it all around me. I see it every day when we choose not to punch the other person because we disagree with them so vehemently, right? I see it every day when a mother wakes up and makes breakfast for her kids. I see it every day when a father goes to work at his hellish job. I see it every day when someone buries their anger to, like, you know, to give to others. I see it when someone celebrates life openly and joyfully. I see it when someone forgives someone. I see it all around us, right? Like, society does not work without love. And I think especially that we truly love when we are able to relate to others.
Can we love without ego, or does it have to include some element of ego?
You don't want to love without feeling loved back. If you love a woman, for example, let's say you're married, if you feel that she doesn't love you back, it will bruise your ego, it will hurt your ego, and it can prevent you from loving her more.
You're making a case for conditional love. I can love anytime, any day, without even thinking that that person is going to give me back, because that person could be dead tomorrow, and I could still love them 10 times more.
The worst feelings that people will ever have is the feeling of rejection, the feeling of loving and not being loved back.
Dr. Sharif spoke about, you know, hub and ishq and all these different ways.
It was beautiful.
You guys come from different cultures and backgrounds. Just give me a bit of that variety.
So I would like
and who has the better vocabulary to cover the vastness and beauty of love?
Language.
Arabic has so many words for so many things. Like, ya hayati means, you know, my life. But I would say English because it's such a simple language. For you to communicate and express love, you have to have some skill in it.
Your answer is basically because English is stupid. Right? But anyway, so okay, wait. So diverse cultures here. Let's start with Spanish.
Yes, we have te amo, which is the biggest you can say. It's like, I really love you.
How about some Tagalog?
Mahal means love, but it also means expensive or prized.
Right.
So,
in Ndebele and Zulu, we've got like a lot of things. I mean, even it's connected to Ubuntu and this idea of like, you know, I am because we are and so on in Southern Africa. Give us a flavor of Zimbabwe.
Okay, so if I'm to use Shona, because that's my native language, a simple phrase as urichido chemoyo wangu. Like there's an aura that comes when you use those particular words.
Okay. Listen, I'm really looking forward to you all engaging with our panelists. So, are you ready to meet with them?
Yes.
Shall we go? Follow me, let's go. Okay, well, the students are here to meet with you all now. There's a lot to talk about. Something that did trigger a lot of discussion and debate, a lot of engagement, was the concept of unconditional love. That word unconditional did some like heavy lifting in there, and it brought out some passion, especially from you, Sundus.
You also yourself spoke about magic of love earlier. So I'm just wondering if you truly believe that it's just biology, because that kind of makes it look like a stimuli-response sort of relation, you know, takes away the soul out of love. And you spoke about magic yourself. So can you expand on that?
Love is very, very complex. So the biological explanation of love is that set of neurochemistry. Is your genes having some sorts of influence on that? Is a set of activations in the brain and some psychologies and cognitions. So what's very interesting about human love, as opposed to love we might see in other animals, other species, is that we have this conscious element to it. So, but we have this massive cortex, which is the thinking, cognitive part of the brain. And that is actually capable of overriding the biology in certain circumstances. Love is very complex, particularly if you're talking about human love, because we are able to reflect on our love, we are able to question our love, we are able to even have a whole relationship in our head without even involving anybody else. Your conscious mind is what makes human love so incredibly special.
So I felt really strongly about getting in there. I believe that love is conditional. It's very rare for it to be unconditional. I just think that that doesn't mean that there have to be like tiny conditions that make it still good, you know? There's a motivation that we're fulfilling. This is where I agreed with her on. But I wanted her to tell me if she really thought that that was it, like that's it. We just like there's a chemical and I'm just trying to suppress that motivation, I'm trying to get rid of that motivation and that's it. I don't believe that that's just that, you know, there's something more than biology.
I wanted to know, like, with regards to passion, for example, in romantic relationships, everyone knows, like, that passion is the part that, like, is the most fun, right? Like, so you, from a biological standpoint, do you believe that it's sustainable to maintain that passion throughout the relationship? Or do you think it's inevitable to fizzle out and die? Like, do you believe, like, it really can only last, like, a couple of years, like everyone says? Like, I'm recently married, etc. Like, I want to know, like, is it inevitable to die?
Timetable. Okay.
Why didn't you say that at the beginning?
or are there ways to maintain that passion throughout, like...
Is those articles you've read about, like 2 years or whatever, they are statistical averages. Everybody is different. Ultimately, you do get to that companionate stage, partly because the neurochemistry that underpins the passionate bit is not sustainable for too long, yet we build tolerance towards it.
I don't agree with her perception that, like, oh, love is going to just die and you're going to become like friend. I don't really think that's the case. I'm a very passionate guy. I think this is in my genes, etc. But I have to wait and see if she's correct.
Regarding the hierarchy, I actually wanted to talk to Dr. Sharif regarding this. From an Islamic perspective, the hierarchy comes from God, and then it comes from morals, and then communities, family, and so on, right? But in our generation, it's become a lot more materialistic. So in some cases, yes, you might see God up there for some people, and then it's directly like money, stability, economic stability for guys specifically, and then it comes education, and then you reach family, and then you reach maybe stability in terms of building a family and having a wife, right? So I wanted to ask you, like, in terms of consideration of our generation, how do we deal with it? How do we stay in track? How do we actually show that there is a proper way of maintaining love? Because as I said earlier, like, the idea of the financial spectrum that we're working in, the idea of capitalism, makes it very difficult for us to focus on the moral aspects.
If you say, well, I'm concerned about getting a job and having a good career and so forth, right? That doesn't mean your love is misplaced. You're just talking about what are your priorities at a particular stage in your life, right? And I think that that's normal, especially as you're building yourself, that you're going to want to be able to stand on your own 2 feet so that you can go on and, you know, find a partner and then, you know, have children and so forth and found a family. So I don't really see those as necessarily in contradiction.
There are a lot of students right now and young adults that want to be independent, in the sense of, I love the idea of being independent, having money, having cars, having this luxurious apartment, and that's all I want in life. Like, we got so used to the materialistic point that there are even expectations from family.
So you might be distracted by material concerns, but that will be to your detriment long term. Because you'll get the car, you'll get the job, you'll get the fast whatever, the clothes or whatever it is, the travel. But in the end of the day, you will find that you are missing something that's actually much more real than all of that.
Can I take that, Sharif, and sorry to interrupt you, can I take that and pose it to Anna? Part of the frustration a lot of men have is that, well, I got the car and the job to provide for my family, and yet I'm still deemed as unloving. I didn't love enough. But isn't that an expression and a manifestation of my love in my way?
Yeah, so fatherhood is at a bit of a crossroads, actually, in terms of where we are, in terms of what we see as good fathering. So actually, quite often people will say to me, what is a good father?
What is a good father?
What is a loving father?
Tell me.
Do you know what? It's absolutely environmentally dependent. So I tell this story, okay, because I've studied fatherhoods in the West, but I've also studied fathers, for example, in hunter-gatherer tribes in Africa. So if I were to say in the West, what's a good father? People would say, well, it's, caring for your child, nurturing your child, explaining to them their homework, supporting their friendships, all really a holistic thing. But if I were to put you in the African savannah and your child was being chased by a lion, you sitting there explaining to them their maths homework is not very helpful. Actually, what you need to be as a father there is very strong, very fit, to pick your child up and run. That is a good father in that environment. So actually, it very much depends upon the environment you're in, as in what is a good father.
So I've heard this quote which states that as for women and children, they're the only ones who are given like this unconditional love. But as for a man or a father figure, to be specific, it's dependent on how he can care and provide. So with regards to your book and how you're giving these distinctions to how a father who is loving is looked at in an African context and maybe in a Western context, what would you think about that particular statement in terms of men and needing to provide? And if a man cannot provide, then there's no love.
I personally would disagree with that vehemently, because actually what children ultimately need is, obviously they need safety, they need a certain amount of money, they need food on the table. Those are fundamentals, but personally that's a responsibility of either parent, and in many cultures that's the responsibility of either parent. It's nothing to do with being a father. The love between a father and their child is just as unconditional as that between a mother and a child. There are many myths surrounding fatherhood which are just that, they are myths. When we look at the attachments that children build to their fathers, they are just as strong as they are to their mothers. They are categorically different in terms of child development, and that's really important, which is why you need father involvement. But that love is just as powerful. It's a myth we've grown up around the mother being like the strongest relationship a child has.
I think from the Islamic paradigm, we have a kind of strong example from the Prophet ﷺ where it should be the case that your relationship with your mother is stronger, because she did carry you for 9 months, she did go through the pains of childbirth, she did go through, how do I say, for example, even breastfeeding, etc. So I know that us as Muslims, we understand that love is actually in a hierarchy, with God at the top, then the Prophet ﷺ, then your mother, and then your father, right? And for me, of course, me as a married man, I have my wife up there. Of course, to her, she's number one. But maybe to others, I'll have to say that she is on the Islamic position.
I never experienced the love of a father or mother. I'm an orphan, so for me it's a bit difficult trying to leverage what is who are you closer to. But sometimes I don't really like approaching the topic this way, just because your mother and father are important, but we also should look at other people that have roles in your life. And I feel like maybe I didn't have a mother or father, but I feel like my friends were actually a very huge foundation to who I am now. And whenever I tell people, hey, I was an orphan, they're like, oh, poor you, oh my God, your parents. And I'm like, no, I'm actually pretty happy right now. And I think I would have rather be with my friends than with a family that did not actually have virtues and values that I shared.
Wonder, Ayca, to the point of, we discussed the modern world and all the tools that we have and all the realities that pervade. Has it become more difficult to be a loving person, a compassionate person, an empathetic person because of the modern world that we're living in?
If you just think about the love, the motivation behind love in the way that we organize our societies as the family at the foundational unit. For instance, we have now smaller families and less children. Why? Because children used to be contributing to the economy. They contribute to, during the agricultural societies, that they were part of the source of income. Now they become a source of cost. And children becoming a source of cost then impacted the role of fathers and mothers in terms of the expectations. So the gender roles have had to shift. So what I have seen is the expectations of women have changed, but men quite haven't, other than the fact that now I think you're more hearing the dads needs to be hands-on. It's always interesting. I have observed this when I would pick up my daughter from school, from daycare, or doctor visits, or play dates and so on and so on. That's sort of like expected. But when a dad shows up, all the mothers like, oh, what a great dad. Or the dad is babysitting.
Okay, so we've been talking about love in the here and in the now. I want to ask somebody from the younger generation, what kind of world are we leaving behind? And is it even our duty, especially us older folks, if you like, our duty to leave behind a more loving world, a more loving planet, more loving ideas, more peace, more love, however you want to define it, Sarah?
It is a duty that we have. It is a duty. We have to create a safer world for the future generation. Basically, we need no more wars. We need to protect the climate. We need to protect our resources, and we need to be more humane to each other. I believe in love for humanity. I think that's the highest level of love that I have.
I dislike the word duty or like obligation, because I don't want to be obliged or thinking I'm obliged to like save the world or live a better generation. I want to do it because I want to, right? And I think a lot of times empathy comes from like allowing people to want to do something. If you're like telling them you have to, it kind of you start to feel like a bit of like, is this really because I want to do it or because I have to do it?
I think you need duty for purpose. The feeling of duty to help others, the feeling of duty to your children, to your parents, etc. This is what creates actually a cohesive society and a community.
Okay. Let me take what you said, and because I saw Mudassir shaking his head, right? Let me give you an example, Mudassir. I go out, max out every credit card I can get, and then I die, and I leave my children with that debt. Surely I have a duty to not be like that.
Good
right?
point, good
so
point.
Doesn't he have a point?
If you love someone, you wouldn't even think of doing something like that, right? Because that's what you're talking about is like narcissism. Love in and of itself and its fundamental core has not changed over the past millennia.
It did.
I think the technological advances and all of that you say are simply veils that are kind of like misguiding us or mischaracterizing us or trying to, like, we misunderstand now what love is. But in its true, rawest form, love is still the same. It is the same love of Shakespeare. It is the same love of Rumi. It is the same love of all the poets.
It hasn't changed. The feeling hasn't changed. This is the way we love because of our either traumas or habits or cultures or AI, communication, social media. The way we love or interact with love has changed. I don't think love has really changed. It is really that innate feeling.
If you see yourself as part of the humanity, then to preserve yourself, we need to contribute to preserving the humanity. And there is a huge connection between the theory of intelligence that is out there, that is pushed to us, and the theory of love that we have been discussing right now. And then the two are really interconnected. If we don't take ownership, if we don't recognize the special powers of love, then slowly we will lose our ability that makes us distinct from other forms of intelligence. That's our competitive advantage. That's our superpowers.
If everyone uses AI and they're using all these things to move forward with love and all these other things, if you don't use them, you're going to be left behind. But the idea of love itself will never change.
Let's be very honest here. Love will survive beyond us. Love will survive AI. Love will survive.
So you feel we see enough love in the world right now?
I absolutely do.
Love will survive. I agree with you in one sense. The question is, will we as a species survive in a healthy, psychologically healthy, physical healthy way, the way we are going? And that is a question, I think. Yeah. Love sits at the heart of your humanity, but it also just sits at the heart of your survival.
Don't you think that some forms of love are actually inherently unhealthy?
Love has a dark side. We crave love so much as humans, okay, because it's innate to who we are. That can then be used to manipulate and exploit. So as with all adaptations, love is an adaptation, it has a dark side, there is a negative side to it. Right. And therefore you can find love being used against you. How you love and how I love are probably going to be completely different. But neither of us is wrong.
There are many dimensions to love, including, you know, the darker versions, the darker parts of it. The idea that love is, of course, when you're going to love someone, you're going to also exclude others.
And if you love someone too much, you end up excluding others even more.
If you say love is an inclination of the heart towards a person or thing, then certainly one's, love can be misdirected, or it can be directed not in proper measure. If it's taken to the extreme, it can be very dangerous. Yeah. So that would be love that's actually misplaced. And you can love something that's bad. I mean, of course, the famous verse in the Quran, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْقِتَالُ وَهُوَ كُرْهٌ لَكُمْ. Fighting has been prescribed for you and it's odious to you. وَعَسَى أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ وَعَسَى أَن تُحِبُّوا شَيْئًا وَهُوَ شَرٌ لَكُمْ. So it could be that you dislike a thing while it's good for you, and that you love a thing while it's bad for you.
Thankfully, you've all been very respectful and loving amongst each other. We've heard some bold claims, hard truths, and deeply personal reflections from everybody, and now conversation has come full circle. Speakers, you have shared your vision, listened to each other, heard your ideas echoed, questioned, and reimagined by the next generation flanking you. Now, we're gonna close this chapter, and I'm gonna start with you, Anna. What has been your takeaway from this experience with the students and recent graduates? Any insights?
I'm interested to understand some of the comments over here about how you're redefining love in terms of what your goals are in life, but also what's fascinating for me and what underpins all my work on love is how many different opinions there are about love. I just think the wonderful thing about love is everybody's experience is individual.
Wonderful. Ayca Ariyoruk, what have you extracted from this experience with the students?
First of all, I think this was a very lively exchange. It gave me hope that young people are really thinking deep about love and questioning everything, and from the point of view of AI, that critical thinking is something that we might slowly, gradually lose if we delegate too much. But I think if I said one thing throughout, and I probably said it too much about love being a form of intelligence, and I said that because intelligence is being able to solve problems, and love solves problems. It is one of those really critical moments where we are defining intelligence, and however we defined is going to scale and stay with us. That's something that I'm hoping the young generation will approach it with a mind to do something about it.
Okay, I hope they're listening. Sharif, El-Tobgui, tie us up in a nice heart-shaped bow here. Like one of those Valentine's Day ones.
Very happy to meet the students and very impressed, with the level of engagement, the level of, analysis. It's been great to hear your perspectives, also to be challenged by them. I do agree with, what was your name? Mudassir, what you were saying. I also agree that love in essence doesn't change, It is the same love today that Rumi spoke about and that people even, back in the times of the Greek tragedy spoke about. Of course, there is, cultural, colorations of it, right? But at its core, love is the same. And it will always be the same. We live in a kind of like a multicultural and multi-confessional and pluralistic world. So we need to find a language to speak about these things, even across, I think, cultural and religious, divides or bridges or so forth.
I felt that Dr. Sharif was giving the answers I wanted to give when I couldn't give them, right? To the questions of the fellow students, right? I thought that we were really aligned with our perspective on love, and the fact that love really, to be full, has to be spiritual, right? I think that it is all well and good to say all love is equal, everyone can love in their own way. But at the end of the day, we are Muslims. And at the end of the day, we believe that there is a true love and there is a higher love that you cannot reach without making your love spiritual, without making your love for the sake of God, right?
Dr. Anna Machin, she was talking this time and I was like, wow, this is the whole 180, because now I somehow agree with everything that she's saying. In the beginning, I didn't agree with anything. And that's, I think, a very good thing, I guess. I take it as a good thing that I was able to just completely change my opinion based on everything I heard. And
regarding the hierarchy that Dr. Sharif brought and Hamad brought, yes, I completely honestly agree with them. Like, they are amazing, and this is something that we should actually aspire to work on. But it's just simply not realistic in today's world, and this is why I was challenging this concept of the hierarchy. There are people that are unfortunately struggling with God in the first place, which is something that is not supposed within our religion, something that you're not supposed to be even like moving or altering or even having like doubts of. It should be the highest priority.
I think all of us, we came to a conclusion that love is something deeply important. It is a moving force for all people from the beginning of time. And it is something that all of us, we can get a little bit more of in our lives, right?
I'm glad we had this conversation. And if any of you felt that we didn't cover particular topics the way we'd you would have liked to or you didn't get enough time, blame me. The fault is all mine. I apologize. I've been trying to keep it all together, but I really appreciate the discussion that we've had here. It's been fascinating, but as they say, if you love something, you need to
let it go.
Let it go. We have to let it go now. So that brings us to the end of this episode of Doha Debates. Thank you to our speakers, our students, and all of you for watching and listening. We've explored bold ideas, challenged all those assumptions as we aim to all the time, and we've opened some space for understanding, I hope, with respect and curiosity at the center. Now, the conversation does not end here. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Please share your thoughts, your questions, and your perspectives. We are listening. Thank you.